Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, then I'm so happy to meet you. If not, then welcome back. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. Give this video a big thumbs up. Turn on your notifications bell and you will get notified every time I have a new upload. And if you would like, it'd be fantastic if you could share this with somebody else or share this with some of your friends. The more people they get to talk about this, the better. Get the conversation going. And you can comment down below and we can keep the dialogue going as well. In today's video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my childhood and some traits I displayed during my childhood that I now recognise were autistic. Me and my mother have been talking about this lately, and just different little scenarios as well that I realise now that I felt a certain way in those scenarios as a result of me being autistic, but of course I wasn't diagnosed until I was 17. Before we go any further, I just want to say, if you see him, that is Francis. He is one of my cats and he basically runs the house, hence why he's lying on my bed right now. But anyway, I thought we'd talk about that today, just a bit of a chat about it. Some people might be able to understand themselves a little bit more through hearing some of these. They might be able to be like, okay, yeah, I was like that when I was a child. Now a lot of these, it's not that, you know, when I turned 18 I didn't have these traits anymore. I still have these traits today, but I guess I've learned to, what's the best way to put it, I've learned to work with it. I've learned how to handle anxiety and handle stress. But anyway, let's get straight into it. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is unannounced visitors. So I can't deal with unannounced visitors. If someone comes to my door and I don't know in advance that they're coming, I will probably be hiding in the sitting room or wherever is available to hide. And particularly when I was a child, this was a big one. My mother has told me a couple of stories of when I was younger, primary school age, and when somebody would come to the door unannounced, I just couldn't handle it and she'd have to turn them away. And I think that people probably didn't understand why. And I don't think my mother or myself even understood why exactly, because I was undiagnosed at the time. And I think that looking back, had I been diagnosed as autistic earlier, it would have been easier to understand why I was like that and why I struggled so much with unannounced visitors. But yeah, even now, that's not something that has changed. I just find it really, really difficult. It gives me stress, it gives me anxiety, and I just can't deal with it. So that's one thing me and my mother were talking about recently was, yeah, when people used to come to the house when I was younger, unfortunately, they weren't very welcome. And it's not that I did it in a mean way or anything like that. I mean, I was only a child, but that was something that I struggled with. And I struggle with today. That's not something that has disappeared with age or anything like that. Another thing I wanted to talk about was me feeling or wanting that to fit in. And I think I did this through taking part in everything possible, even though it was too much stress for me, too much anxiety for me, and things that I didn't even enjoy. It was pushing myself too much to take part in sports. God help me, terrible at sports, always have been. I'd imagine I always will be. But pushing myself to do these things and not understanding why I wasn't good at things, not understanding why I just could never quite fit in. And I thought the more things I did, the easier it might be for me to fit in, which wasn't the case, and I was causing myself unnecessary stress and anxiety. So I think that's another reason why, if I had known I was autistic, I could have understood that better. Me and my mother could have spoken about it. Maybe I would have been easier on myself and not feeling like I had to take part in absolutely everything to fit in. And it was just a thing of, I just found it difficult to feel like I fitted in. And I think that's something that I would still feel today in certain cases. But I do feel that, particularly when I went to college, I started to feel like I fitted in more. I started to, I think, to open up a little bit. I think I kind of got a little bit of confidence at that point in my life. And I think that was due to the fact that I had obviously had my diagnosis at that point, which was fantastic. Another thing I want to talk about was I struggled a lot with the cold, and I still do. Like, for me, it's a severe sensation feeling the cold. So, like, particularly around my neck area, it actually pains me to feel it really, really cold. That's why I like to be very warm a lot of the time. And I do remember in primary school, where the classrooms, there was a row of windows that side and a row of windows that side. And sometimes when they'd be open kind of right beside me, both windows, I would ask, could I close them? And unfortunately, not everybody has agreed with me. So if I asked, could I close the window, suddenly every window in the place was open. I'm not quite sure why people did that. Was it to annoy me? Did they think it was funny? I'm not quite sure. But suddenly every window would be open. And that would cause me a lot of stress. And by the time I'd get home in the evening, you know, it would be a sensory overload, it would be an autistic meltdown, and it would be just something that was really, really difficult for me to deal with. And I think people probably didn't realize, I think people thought I was being awkward, which I really wasn't being. And I think that's why people sort of, you know, opened all the windows just to irritate me a little bit. But that was something. And even today, if I go into a restaurant, I'm like looking strategically at where the windows are and where a draft may be, because it does affect me that much. Another thing, while I'm talking about senses and sensory overload, noise. Loud, very loud noises definitely were a big thing for me as a child, and a big thing now. I get frightened quite easily. I remember the first St. Patrick's Day parade I went to. So excited, delighted with myself, couldn't wait for it. And myself and my mother had to park like quite a bit away, so we had a big walk up. We got ourselves the 99, you know yourself. Absolutely delighted with ourselves. Next thing, a lorry comes as part of the parade, beeps the horn, and I just can't handle it, and we have to go home before the parade even starts. Could not handle it. I think in hindsight, had we probably known I was autistic, I could have probably used headphones, which would have been a huge help. But of course, we didn't know, and and we couldn't understand, because every other child was pretty okay with it, you know what I mean? But I just know I couldn't handle that. I did go to parades after that, and I think I learned to deal with it and to mask. And I am going to do a video specifically on masking, because I think it needs to be talked about in its own video. And I am going to talk about that. But yeah, noise was another one. And again, I've carried that into adulthood. It's not disappeared. I've just learned a little bit how to deal with it. But I think when you're undiagnosed as a child, it's very difficult for your parent to understand why they're looking at other children around the place who are okay with this, but their child is really struggling. And I think I do want to do a video with my mother at some point talking about these things as well, and getting her perspective on things, because I think that'd be interesting. Another thing, and I think I've mentioned this in a video before, and that was clothes, particularly school uniform. So basically, the sensation of clothes for me, I like quite soft clothing. Any very hard, harsh materials for me, just, I cannot tolerate them. And I feel like when I went to school, primary and secondary school, the materials were quite hard and stiff around here, and the polo necks were quite stiff, and it just used to really, really upset me. I would be really stressed. When my mother would be washing my clothes, particularly school uniform, she'd be pulling the jumper, trying to stretch it a bit. She actually cut a bit down the back of the jumper to see would it help with the sensation around my neck. And I think in hindsight, and I think this is something that I think schools could definitely look at, is perhaps having nicer materials, softer materials for uniforms, or perhaps having more than one option for the uniform. Perhaps having, maybe a sweatshirt rather than a jumper and a polo neck or polo shirt. Having different kind of options, still within the school uniform and the colours of the school uniform, but just something that, might just help people with sensory problems. And I think that would have been really, really helpful. But even today, I chop the labels off my clothes. you know, those long stringy things that be on them sometimes for hanging them on hangers, they have to come off. Certain materials I just won't like. I'm also one of these people, if I find something I like, straight away, is it in any other colours? And I want every colour because I have found something that I really like. So clothes was a big thing as well. And I think a lot of these things, a lot of people who are autistic will probably be able to relate to these. But of course, everybody who is autistic is different. There's not all autistic people are the same. Not all autistic people have the same experiences. And I do want to say that because it is a spectrum. Everybody's different, you know, and everybody will display different traits, and traits that I might display may be different to what another person might display. Or when I was a child, the traits I would display then may have been very different from another child who was autistic. So I just wanted to say that quickly. Moving along, what else did I want to talk about it? Yes, this is a big one as well. Asking a lot of questions and also correcting the teachers sometimes. I did it, yes, I did. I think this was probably, particularly in primary school, I was, you know, the hand was up all the time, asking question after question after question. And also I was partial to correcting a teacher now and again. I feel like as I came to secondary school, I started to probably realise, okay, you know, maybe hold back the 1,000 questions and hold back on correcting teachers, because a lot of the time that, you know, they probably don't really like being corrected, particularly by a child, even if I was right. Just putting it out there. So that was something that I definitely did, and I think that I have, from listening to other autistic people's videos, podcasts, various things like that, it is something that seems to come up time and time again, and something that a number of people have mentioned. Another trait was routine. Still like that today. You know, I work very well with routine. I have quite strict routines. It's just what I work better with. And if, like, I'll have a plan, particularly if I'm going somewhere for a day, I'll have a plan of what I'm doing at what time. And if that plan gets changed and my routine is knocked off, that I can find that really, really stressful. And I think that's a big thing with people who are autistic, is that a change in a plan or something might happen a day that other people might think is just such a small thing, but it can really knock off my day. And I think that other people who are autistic would also agree with that and would also have those experiences. I thrive on routine and plans. You know, if I'm going somewhere, if I'm doing something, you know, when I was going to college, anything like that, you know, plan. I had to have everything planned. And as soon as I know if I'm going somewhere for a day out, I've got the diary out. I'm writing out what time I'm getting a train, maybe, what time I have to leave the house, what time I have to get ready, what time I'm eating at. Absolutely everything is planned. And now that I've mentioned eating, that's going to bring me on to another thing, food. As a child, and actually today now as well, I just cannot stand food touching each other on a plate, particularly like if I have, I don't know, something with gravy. Like, I can't have it touching another kind of like liquid type thing. That would just ruin my meal. And I am still like that today, but probably more so as a child. And there was certain foods I just really, really liked, and I would eat that food again and again and again and again and again. I would get very fixated with the food that I liked, or with a colour of a food I liked, or a certain few foods that I liked, and I would want to stick with them all the time. I think I now would be able to branch out a little bit more. However, if I'm getting a takeaway, I probably always get the same thing. There's certain restaurants I like to go to, and I tend to always suggest those restaurants if I'm meeting up with a friend. I'm like, oh, let's go to whatever restaurant I kind of like, and I will most likely order exactly the same thing every time I go. So I think food was and is a big thing for me, but I think I have learned to try and branch out a little bit more, to try and try different foods. But it is something, again, it's routine, it's planning. I like my routine. I like knowing what I'm going to get when I go somewhere. If I am going somewhere new, I'm checking out the menu, I'm seeing what I like, I'm seeing what I might like, what I won't like. If there's just nothing if there's nothing on it that I would like, then it's just probably not going to be suitable for me. I think I've spoken about pretty much everything I wanted to speak about today. I hope that it was an insight into some traits that I displayed as a child and traits that I have carried into that I still have now in adulthood. I hope that some people might be able to relate to this. If you are autistic, or if you are the parent or the sibling or a friend of somebody who's autistic, that it can help you to understand certain traits and why somebody might be the way they are. I hope that it has maybe educated some people a little bit on certain traits, and I hope that when you might see somebody, or particularly see a child who's struggling with something like unannounced visitors, who's struggling to fit in, who's struggling with different sensory issues, that perhaps we can be a little bit more understanding, and that we can think, well, okay, maybe there's a reason for this. This child is not necessarily being awkward, or this adult is not necessarily being awkward. So I hope that people can take something from today's video. I've babbled on. I hope it's made sense. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all the love and support on all of my videos. I appreciate it. As I always say, I will leave my Instagram handle at the end of this video. I would love if you would keep the conversation going. So if you have your own experiences you would like to share, please comment down below. I would love to keep the conversation going, keep the dialogue going, hear other people's experiences, and have the comments below for a safe place where you can do that, where you feel like you can. If you feel like you can't, that's absolutely fine, but I would love keep the conversation going, as I feel it's so important. So yeah, that has come to the end of today's video. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you very soon. He might be in my next video, who knows. Maybe he should become a permanent fixture in these videos. But this cat kind of does what he wants to do, so who knows where he'll be next time. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna go now, and I'll see you really soon, and thank you.